The TextBox control is used to get input from users as well as to display text. Now, if you just want to display text, you can use a label or a text box, but if you want the users to be able to enter things by typing, that's what you use a text box for. The text property of the TextBox control determines as well as controls what text is in there. If you want to know how much text is in the text box, you can use the text length property. You can use the focus method to move the cursor into the text box. And then you can use the cut, copy, paste, and undo methods of the text box to work with the text that's in the text box. Well, what if you want a multi-line text box? Well, you can do that by setting properties. You can set the multi-line property to true. Then you'd probably want to increase the height of the text box, either by setting the height property or just by dragging it. You may want scroll bars. You can set the scroll bars property to vertical to be able to scroll up and down through the text. Set the word wrap property to true if you want words to be wrapped. And then if you want the user to be able to tab inside the text box, set the accepts tab property to true. And if you want the user to be able to hit a carriage return, then set the accepts return property to true. You might want to highlight a text box when the user moves into it. That way the user always knows which text box is current. So to do that, you can use the enter event handler, and the enter event occurs when the cursor or the focus enters the text box. So you could change the back color property of the text box and then set it back when the user exits that text box and trap that with the leave event handler. The user can select text in a text box. You might want to either select text or work with the text that's been selected at runtime. So to do that, the first thing you need to be able to know is what text was selected. Well, the selection start property represents the first character that was selected, and then selection length will tell you the number of characters that were selected. Or you can just use selected text, which represents all of the text that was selected. If you want to do the selecting yourself, you can use the select all method to select everything in the text box. You can use the select method if you only want some of the text selected. And to unselect the text, you can use the deselect all method. You can add auto-completion to a text box. And this is a nice technique to have in Windows applications as well as web applications. So the text box will be monitoring what's been entered, and then it's going to suggest entries based on what's been typed. And you'll use the autocomplete mode property to control how the suggestions are made. You can just add the remainder of the likely value to what the user entered. You can also display all of the likely values in a drop-down list, and you can do both. You can not only add what is probably what the user entered, as well as display it. Now, where do these likely values come from? That's what the autocomplete source property is. So if it's a list that you pulled from a database or a list that you make up on the fly, you'll use the autocomplete source property to have the text box know what values to display. Let's go see a demo of using these techniques in a form.